welcome back to the dungeon. And we got a familiar face with us again tonight. And we got Joshua Millican. Let's try that
Millican,
again.
yes.
Millican. See,
Joshua Millican.
it's been so long since we talked, I forgot your last name. But
Don't even sweat it. It's one of those that looks strange, and yeah.
yeah, well, once you see that double L, it's like, okay, what is okay? Is it
Right,
million,
right.
Killian, and
But
oh,
then
okay,
there's that C in there, and it's like, what?
all right. But yeah, we talked to you. What about 8 months or so ago? Talking about your book, Deeper Than Hell, and so now that it's been just not quite a year, how has that thing been receiving, and what's has it gotten to audiobook yet?
Yeah. It's been received very well. It has close to 50 reviews on Amazon and over 70 on Goodreads.
Cool.
And it's above 4 stars still on both of those platforms. So I feel great about that. I'd like to get even more reviews, but I think it's been very well received from what the critics have said. No one has really said much negative at all. So in that sense, I feel totally blessed with how it's gone. And we can talk about this more maybe again towards the end, swing back to it, but it's not even really widely been reported yet. Although it has been kind of leaked, and maybe by the time this goes live, it will be officially reported. But there's a sequel to Deeper Than Hell coming out.
Oh, okay.
On right around the book's 1 year anniversary.
All right.
And audiobook, yes, the audiobook is out. I really need to write the guy's name down because every time someone brings it up, not only do I want to say the audiobook's out, but I want to say the actor who did it did an amazing job. You've read Deeper Than Hell. You know that it's a first-person character who, is screwed up on drugs and being tortured a lot of the time. This guy has the perfect amount of snark and sincerity to really make Sonny pathetic, sympathetic, and like somebody who you really are glad you're on this journey with him. So I can't thank him enough. I think he does some work in animation as well. Maybe would do some research in the meantime, and you like pop it up on the screen or insert it in the notes. Who the guy who did the audiobook is? 'Cause he is fantastic.
Okay. Now, what has been the reception of is it chapter 3?
I mean,
What has been the ominous, the every good movie has that one scene, and then if you get a good book, there's always that one chapter or that twist or something like that really grabs somebody from the balls or by the nose hairs or something, and just really So what has been the what has been the reception or the reaction, as it were, to chapter 3?
Well, like I said, the critics have all been kind. I do have some friends though who gave me some shit. Specifically, is it okay to swear? Should I?
Fuck yeah.
All right, right on. Yeah, I have this one friend who, first of all, horror is not her thing, but she's like, "Oh, you're a good writer. I want to support you. I'm going to read this." She said that chapter 3, and specifically that scene, spoiler, that scene, she said that in her mind was the difference between it being a good book and a book she just wants nothing to do with. If it wasn't for that one scene in that one chapter, it would have been a good book, but it just crossed the line right there in chapter 3. So I guess that chapter 3 kind of separates, the people who can truly roll with transgressive horror from those who are just kind of tourists.
Yeah. Now, as a book writer with, I'm sure you've read. Now, do you read a lot of other people's books or something like that, or are you one of these people that kind of stays away from that, thinking that it might bleed into your art?
No, I mean, I love reading other people's works. I just don't have as much time as I'd like. Part of the reason I went on sabbatical from Dread Central over a year ago is because my son was born, and that guy is just the apple of my eye, and he takes up a lot of time, but and I love it, so I don't get as much time to read as I would like, but I have a really big to be read list, and I've been meeting some wonderful authors. I did read Womb, Duncan Ralston. I felt like I kind of had to. It was the perfect size, the perfect length, and the buzz was just oh my God, this is really sick and twisted. And I thought, well, hey, that's what people are saying about my book too. So. I enjoyed Womb, and I've since been in touch with Duncan on Twitter. Nice guy. Have you read Womb?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, if you think Chapter 3 in Deeper Than Hell crosses a line, wait till you read Womb, and it's only like 90 pages, so pick it up and knock it out. I'll recommend that one.
All right. Now, have you seen some of these new kind of style movies of, I don't know if it's like a new flavor, but I'm specifically thinking of like The Outwaters and Skinamarink, and they call these like experimental linear spaces type horror movies. They've been getting all the rave, but I watched... I haven't seen Skinamarink yet, but I have seen Outwaters, and it was like, I'm sorry, maybe I'm a poser, but I just don't get it.
No, yeah, those two films are very different. I have seen both of them. I think that there's a resurgence in found footage, and I think that has to do. Well, I think the first time found footage became like a real go-to source in horror. Trends in horror reflect societal fears and the way we process and deal with our fears. And I think after 9/11, where we saw all those crazy raw images, something like the Blair Witch Project, which was already successful, all of a sudden that like really fit with, the idea that the scariest thing we're ever going to see is happening live, or we didn't even mean to record that. It happened over there. Found footage was really big for about a decade, and then it kind of went underground again. And I think it's back up again because of the whole online streaming stuff, the fact that you have all these people recording every moments of their lives, and now the fact that you have like police wearing the body cams, and people live streaming traffic stops on their Facebook. I think that's kind of why found footage is coming back again, because we really are again seeing this crazy stuff in this format, and it's impactful again because we're seeing it everywhere. Everyone has the ability to immediately stream everything they see. Now, The Outwaters, that was a difficult film. I made a joke about it on my little YouTube experiment that we can talk about later, but I describe it as, and this is maybe a good 40-50% of it. It's like you're trying to watch the movie through a peephole, but the peephole keeps jumping around. So, and I want to ask you, spoiler alert, because I saw a review of it that said, yeah, and at one point the main character comes across this giant lobster creature that shambled away. I didn't see a lobster.
I didn't see a lobster.
I mean, is that even true? Was there really a monster there? Or was it just some guy thinking he saw a tree and it was a lobster? Because I didn't see a damn lobster. Now, all this...
I saw a bunch of worms, but...
yeah, no, the worms were good. So it's like, that made me think maybe there was a lobster, and I just missed it. I'm not going to watch it again just to try to find a lobster, because it was that difficult an experience. It was really hard. Maybe it would have been different if I saw it on a big screen, but I had it full screen on my laptop, and I'm still trying to, and I just got a headache. The ending's fantastic. The ending is fantastic. Is it worth an hour and 40 minutes of a difficult experience for 4 awesome minutes? Some people will think so, and some people will really enjoy this. Skinamarink is a real anomaly. Do you have anything else to say about Outwater before I hijack your show and move on
No,
to the
no,
next
no.
topic?
I've heard people talk about the sound design, the sound design. You know, you gotta hear it in like surround sound. So I'm thinking maybe that. I mean, one of my buddies on YouTube, horror guru and Count Chocula, they say it was like, okay, if we want to see a movie, we want to see something. We don't want to hear
Right.
anything. So maybe this is a new type of style of movie that concentrates more on what you hear rather than what you
And what you
see.
can't see.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
know.
Which
It's
is a
it's it's
perfect
too new.
segue. The Skinnamarink.
Yeah, it's too new to me
Yeah, well,
to
this
know.
is a perfect segue into Skinamarink because that's the same thing about Skinamarink, where you kind of like have like a sitting view of something, and it's not a direct view, but you hear and see things kind of going on over there, and
Hmm.
it's different than the Outwaters or the Outwaters. Excuse me, I don't know what the Outwater Village. That's a place, I guess. I don't know. The Outwaters. That one kind of lost my train of thought with my fumble there, but Skinamarink, yeah. So things are going on over there, and you don't see them directly, but it's not found footage, and it kind of gives the illusion of being found footage because it's kind of grainy and things like that. And
Hmm.
there is a part in Skinamarink where the point of view kind of one of the characters, one of the kids, kind of embodies the point of view, and the camera actually walks down the hall and looks under a bed and things like that. So it's interesting. Like the Outwaters, there is a lot of emphasis on what you can't see. You do have to pay attention to what you hear. Unlike the Outwaters, I found Skinamarink to be an experience I could easily absorb. That said, I don't think everyone had that same experience. A lot of people felt that Skinamarink was too experimental. I heard people say that there was no plot and that there was no payoff, and I disagree with both of those points. I think there's absolutely a plot, and I really did appreciate the payoff. Skinamarink is an example of style being substance. It really is about the entire aesthetic and the whole movie from start to finish. And I think in this instance, it did work. The style was good enough and creepy enough to, I mean, frankly, it's pretentious, yes, because you need to kind of like say these pretenses in order to, get someone to understand the experiment. But it works. Skinamarink, I think, is worthy of the praise it's getting, although I understand why it's so polarizing. But if you haven't seen Skinamarink yet and were frustrated by the Outwaters, I think it might be the remedy. I think you might see kind of the overarching liminal horror, which I think is what people are calling it, and see how that's kind of transcending genres, because you have the Outwaters, which is definitely found footage. You have Skinamarink, which is not, but it really like captures that liminal feeling so well that they're getting lumped together. And what we've got coming down the pipe, they're going to make a movie. A24 is going to make a movie about the backrooms, and I don't know if you're
Hmm.
familiar with that creepypasta.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and hallways and corridors, and I think that hits that liminal button too, where you're more scared about what you're going to see when you turn around the corner than you are with what you're looking directly at. Now, it's like you and the horror guru said, you got to see something. There has to be something. And in Skinamarink, it's more than the Outwaters, but it's not humongous. I mean, there is a reveal. With the backrooms, I have a feeling we're going to have some really good scariness. So I'm excited to see that when it comes out.
Yeah, I think I guess the bottom line is to get people talking about it.
Yes.
Either whichever side of the poles that you're located on. Were you talking
Yeah.
fantastic or talking you really crappy? I hated it. Why'd you hate it? I don't know. You got to see it for yourself.
Right.
So, but
Well, there's
people are
actually
talking.
there's a really good sort of test you can do to see if you're going to be into Skinamarink, because Kyle Edward Ball used to make short films before he made Skinamarink, and you can go to his YouTube channel, which is Bite Size Horror, and look for the short film called Heck, because that one is basically like a 30-minute version of Skinamarink, and it was actually created as proof of concept for a feature-length film, which became Skinamarink.
Okay.
So if you want to dip your toe, you can check out Heck on Bite Size Horror YouTube channel.
All right. And actually, talking about little bite-size videos, I saw I follow you on Twitter, and I saw that you were talking about you give your little 1 minute take on something on a movie, but you have a neat you have a neat little I don't know, gimmick, signature style, or whatever what you call it, but what do you call it? Yeah, a token and a take. What is that? What it's called?
A token a take. Yep, a token a take.
So you take
the bong.
you hit the bong, and then you have 60 seconds to talk or espouse on a movie that you saw while you're riding that high.
Exactly, and trying to keep my thoughts together after having just taken this big hit. So it's kind of fun, and I try to do it in one take, and, I don't do any editing besides that. There's no intro or outro or anything. It's just really basic. But yeah, token a take. This is kind of like the first week I've been doing it, and it's gotten some pretty good response. I did one on Nightbreed that's gotten hundreds of views. Now, it is kind of funny. We can talk about this now because it hasn't aired yet, but the one for tomorrow, it'll be available by the time this airs.
Oh, yeah.
The one for tomorrow is the Bye Bye Man. And I uploaded it and I scheduled it and everything, and it hasn't even gone live yet, but I got my first notice from YouTube where it's like, your video has been age restricted, and it's like, why did it take them this long? Is it because I'm smoking the weed? Is it because I'm saying the F word? I mean, both, whatever. Do I care that it's age restricted and people won't see it unless they're over 18? Not a bit, but it is kind of funny because, I'll never be able to monetize. I guess I could look for sponsors, but, it's not even really about that, my book is the main thing. My books are the main things I really want to promote, and my writing. But, Token to Take is a fun way to interact with people on a daily basis.
Excellent. So do you have you ever done so many takes on that it's like by the time you actually videotape it, it's like you're so far gone?
It did take me a few times. Like there'll be like, I really flub, or or I have a technical problem. At most it's taken me 3 or 4, and it has gone to the point where it's like, thank God I got it on that take, because otherwise, but it's good. And another reason this is fun for me to do, a big part of being an author is having a social media presence, and I just always have struggled with that because I don't really enjoy putting out my own opinions for other people to just attack me for, or criticizing other people on their opinions. I mean, it's nice to say nice things from time to time, but then I also struggle with feeling like, who am I to shove anything down your throat? And it's like, oh, well, people want to get to know you. And it's like, well, when people look at me, when people see my picture, they get all intimidated because they don't realize I sound like Jeff Spicoli, and they think I'm some Rob Zombie dude. So, this token, it takes like a good way for me to be like, all right, it's not just some hardcore looking guy like with an opinion trying to be tough or something. I really am just this laid back, mellow dude. I'm into horror. I write these gross novels, but I'm just like a real cool dude. And if this lets people know who I am, and if this helps people feel like they know me better, and if that makes them more likely to want to see the rest of my art, it's all worth it.
Excellent. Well, I subscribed as soon as I saw that one video from that tweet. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I like this. So
yeah.
But
Joshua Millican on YouTube. Joshua Millican on YouTube, and that's the home of Token to Tweak.
Token to Tweak.
Token to Take. Oh man, no tweaking, no tweaking on my talk show. Total slip of the tongue there, man. No tweakers on Token to Take. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Well, your new book coming out is a bit of a.
It's out.
It's out now.
It came out a week ago Friday.
Okay, all right, and it's compared to Deeper Than Hell. It's something very different. It's like a new side of one of your passions and things that you enjoy
Absolutely.
doing. So tell us about how you started all these little. Do we call them interviews? Do we call them
Yeah, they're interviews.
just shooting the shit? What do we do? What do we call
I
them?
mean, my book that's out now is nonfiction. It's a collection of the interviews I did over my time at Dread Central. So these were all originally published as interviews on Dread Central. And what I was able to do, thanks to the wonderful team at Encyclopocalypse, was take these out of the digital ether, put them into a collection, intersperse it with reflections, make it a bit of a hybrid memoir, include a bunch of photos from, my experiences with the horror crowds throughout the years and conventions and film festivals. And then we put an index in the back because there was so much cool shit that we talk about through all these interviews that I wanted it to be a real resource where you could, find things out, and hopefully information from this book will work its way into Wikipedia, because, there's a lot of information in here that isn't really very well known because it's hard to, pull things out of the internet. But now that it's a book, now that it has that, heft to it, literal and figurative, hopefully people will see it as a resource and want to visit it and check it out. I don't know if you received your sample copy, but this is
Let's see. Yep.
tome. And it's very hefty.
Okay.
And got the pictures and just a lot of fun stuff. I hope people will dig it. And it's just a great encapsulation of my time at Dread Central, because I don't work for Dread Central anymore. I'm on this book writing kick, so it's just a great thing to have pulled out from my years there. And I feel like it's like a resume filled with letters of recommendation, because it's all the people I've talked to and all the wonderful conversations I've had with them. And it's got some really wonderful, a book is supposed to have one foreword. I have two forewords. Gigi Salguero wrote me a foreword. Amazing Canadian-Mexican filmmaker, wonderful Latinx artist, director, filmmaker. She's also a voice artist. She's just amazing and wonderful. The other foreword was written by Heather Buckley, who is one of the producers on The Ranger, which is a horror movie that came out a few years ago that I'm a huge fan of.
Okay.
She also founded Black Mansion Studios, which is a horror studio focusing on women and underrepresented voices. So she also wrote me a really fantastic foreword. I hope people will enjoy the book.
Sweet. Now, what kind of, I guess, obstacles, if any, did you have to go through to, as far as like, with Dread Central getting permission to publish these under?
Get me to say something? No.
I mean, I'm sure you guys parted ways amicably, right? So
That's the story.
Obviously,
Yeah.
So. But was there any like?
No, there was no trouble. There was no trouble. I love Dread Central is a legacy horror site. The name Dread Central carries so much weight, and it was my honor to work there for the few years that I did. And I'm so thankful that the folks at Dread Central gave us permission to take these books, to take these interviews, put them into this collection. And if you read my reflections throughout, you'll see that working at Dread Central was really just a high point of my life, and I'll never forget my times there.
Excellent. And the check is in the mail, Dread Central. Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But all right, so
trying to get in trouble.
Nah.
We'll talk offline. Okay. No, I'm kidding.
We'll fix it in post. So what?
Nah, they're great.
So what kind of name did you get on here? And what I mean,
who are my interviewees?
Yeah.
got tons of them, mainstream ones all the way down to the indie stars. You got Rob Zombie, Robert Englund, M. Night Shyamalan. You got Crispin Glover, David Arquette. And then you've got some indie heroes. You got the Soska sisters. You got Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. You've got just there's over 50 interviews. My glasses are off, otherwise I'd jump into Adam Wingard, Bill Moseley,
Bill.
Chloe Sevigny, Tristan Risk, Peter Block, just so many. So Tom Holland, Adam Rifkin. So yeah, just tons.
And how many years did it take to collect all these?
The first interview was in 2018, and the last one at the end of 2021 that I did with M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, the last one's the end of 2021 with M. Night Shyamalan.
Okay. All right. So how much editing did it take to get those down to, because I mean, it sounds like you would looking at the book, it sounds like you have enough for like a Encyclopedia Britannica.
Pretty much. Well, thankfully they had already gone through the editing process, before they were published on Dread Central. So, just pulling the text from all those articles wasn't that difficult at all.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. And then, writing my reflections, putting in the memoir aspect of it. I'm lucky that, Encyclopocalypse, it's so great having a publisher. I love people who self-publish, and, more power to them. But, my publisher, Encyclopocalypse, hooks me up with copy editors and, proofreaders and things like that. So it's really wonderful. As for, the collection of all the photos and the making of the index, I know that there was a lot of effort to do that, on the part of Encyclopocalypse. Again, I really appreciate them doing that for me. This is the first book they ever released that has an index. So, that was a new experience for me and them, and the pictures and everything. So, they really went all out for this. People familiar with Encyclopocalypse are probably more used to seeing their little, they even do like trade-sized paperbacks sometimes, movie novelizations. So this is just something really huge. There's even going to be a hardcover version of it. So they really went all out for me and gave me something I'm eternally grateful for, and something I'll always be able to be proud of,
Excellent.
And if the internet goes down, if the EMPs go off, then this survives in libraries.
Yes.
At least those of my friends.
There we go. So each interview has like a little piece by you, just reflecting back on that time that you spoke to that person.
Not every single one of them. Some of them I felt like the intro was enough, and that there wasn't really anything I could add. But most of them for sure. There are some that reminded me of an experience I was having simultaneously, and I described that. And there are some that, I just wanted to let people know what was going on at Dread Central internally at different times, and, personally and things like that. All that said, it's not the story of my time at Dread Central. If I was going to write about my years at Dread Central, that would be very different. This is my interviews from my time at Dread Central with some reflections thrown in there. So it's not the end-all be-all of my time spent at that legacy website, Dread Central, which I just love so much. And, I got to give props, while we're talking so much about Dread Central and giving so much props. Steve Barton is the heart and soul of Dread Central. And, unfortunately, he left not long after I came aboard. And nonetheless, he always remained a friend to me and a mentor to me. And he always kept the door open for me anytime I needed to talk. And even though he wasn't working at Dread Central when I was editor-in-chief, I always asked myself, with everything I wrote, with everything I published, with everything I proved, I asked myself, is this dreadworthy? Meaning, is this something that Steve Barton would push the publish button on? And that was my barometer. And I hope that, Dread Central's changing now, that I'm not there anymore. New leadership, new voices and new directions. And I love that they're doing that. I hope people will look at my time there. And maybe even, this would be a good compliment. If people say, I never even noticed when Josh Millican was editor-in-chief, that would be good, because all I was trying to do is maintain the legacy that came before me. Dread Central was over 10 years old before I stepped in the door. And, they were a Rondo Award-winning best horror site 2009 through 2012 or 13 or 14. I mean, there was a period where it was just the best horror site on the planet. And if during my time there, I gave horror fans a place to come where they felt like this was the dread they were used to, then my job was well done.
Excellent. Well, I can't really say that I'm familiar with Dread Central, but I can't honestly say whether I even knew you were the editor there when I went to that business. So.
And that's fine. Like I said, that's fine, as long as you were getting the Dread Central experience on my watch.
That's good. So I'm not going to ask you what was your favorite person to interview, but was there anything in your discussions with any of these people that you just took away and you still remember to this day? It was like, oh, that was just a morsel of wisdom, and that was a pearl that I'm gonna remember that till the day I die.
I can give you a couple examples.
Yeah.
Well, first, I got to tell you about my interview with Adam Rifkin. Adam Rifkin, not even really a horror director, but he had done this horror comedy that Dread released, Dread Central Presents. So I was interviewing about his film Director's Cut, but he had also, one of his first feature films, if not his very first feature film, is called The Dark Backward, and it's become something of a cult film. I don't know if you've seen it or even heard of it, but it has James Caan, Judd Nelson, and Bill Paxton in the three main starring roles. And so I interviewed Adam Rifkin. It was less than a year after Bill Paxton passed away, and it was still really raw. And we were talking about The Dark Backward and how wonderful it was for him to have worked with Bill. And he starts telling me about how he and Bill remained friends from that moment onward. Not occasional friends either, close friends who saw each other frequently. Now, Bill Paxton and Adam Rifkin were hanging out a few days before he went into surgery. And Bill told Adam, and Adam told me, that Bill had some anxieties about it, that he knew that it wasn't a very complicated operation, that he felt uneasy about it. And of course, hearing that and knowing that that's how his life ended is extremely impactful. And the fact that Adam shared that with me was wonderful. I asked and he was giving with his reflections. So, it was a wonderful moment in the dreadful years. In terms of wisdom, Tom Holland, man, that guy, and I'm not talking about the actor. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the director of Child's Play and Fright Night and Cloak and Dagger and, Tom Holland he has just a really great wit. And he told me, he says, Josh, I only became a director out of self-defense because I was sick of watching assholes take my screenplays and rack them, so that's why he was gonna direct Fright Night. He wasn't gonna, he was doing it in self-defense because he wasn't gonna let another director fuck up his screenplay. Yeah, it was great hearing him say that. And I love the idea of a writer just being like, I'm fed up with people taking my vision and making shit out of it. This is the movie I want to put out. And then you look at Fright Night and you're like, it's fantastic. Yeah. And then you look at the first Child's Play, this movie is wonderful. It's the scariest one they've ever made. It's the quintessential Chucky. And then you look at the screenplays he's written. He's written some great screenplays. Now, I don't think he was talking about the director of Psycho 2 when he said, he became a director in self-defense, because I think the director of Psycho 2 did a really great job. But, excuse me, Tom Holland wrote the screenplay to that. And a lot of people are starting to realize that Psycho 2 is like a really great sequel to Psycho. And that film now has a big cult following. So Tom Holland just had some wonderful pearls of wisdom. One of the other things he said that I think about a lot, he says he worries, maybe I shouldn't even put those words into his mouth. He did say that when horror becomes too preachy, it signals that it's nearing the end of its run. So I think about that from time to time. Is horror getting too preachy, and does that mean that this thing that we called horror is basically going to wrap up sometime in the next few years, at which point I'm sure it'll splinter into different genres, and we'll have this and this and this instead of just one big umbrella for horror. I don't know. I think about that from time to time. Has horror gotten too preachy? Is there too much insistence on including a social message? I love social horror. I love political horror. Is it too alienating for the wider audience? I don't know. I really just don't. But I think about that when I think about Tom Holland and, Pearls of Wisdom.
Yeah, it definitely, because when you consider that horror is, it is in a sense social commentary of what's going on in the world around us, and it
Always
gives us, I mean, hell, it's at the very least, it's given us an outlet of facing our biggest fear is the unknown, our death. And I know I've faced my mortality quite a few times, and I think that's why I have a warped sense of humor, and I love horror movies so much because I find it very therapeutic, to watch that kind of stuff. I can't explain why or what happens in my psyche, but it works. That's all I can say. That's
horror's healing. As weird as that sounds, horror is healing. And it makes sense that more and more people are drawn to the genre and, including their voices, and that it's becoming so huge. But yeah, I just think that maybe horror is becoming so huge that it's going to splinter off. And, maybe like 25, 30 years from now, what we call horror now will be 3 or 4 different categories. It'll just have evolved like that. I don't know.
interesting. It's definitely an interesting, exciting time to be a horror fan, considering
It is.
how great last year was. I mean, God, I haven't even put out my top 10 list yet because it's so hard to narrow it down to 10. And then here we are, just entering March right now, and we already had God. I can't even tell. So it's like it's overload, but it's fun. It's fun to be a fan right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The title of Deeper Than Hell Part 2 is Septum.
Okay.
And that's maybe I'll have announced it online before this comes out, or maybe this will be the reveal. We've had some beta readers. There's been some discussions, so it's not like a tightly held secret. But Deeper Than Hell Part 2 is called Septum, and it's not your traditional sequel. It takes place simultaneously. So it's technically what's called a paraquel, because it's the same time frame and the stories intersect, but it's a different character, different point of view. So it's almost like a slice of Deeper Than Hell that got expanded into its own novel.
Sort of like the
character.
Sort of like the first 2 or so movies of Saw, where it's kind of stuff going on at the same time. And at the end, it's like, holy hell, what's going on?
Yeah, and then at the end of those first 4 movies, there you had the whole big picture. I hadn't even thought about it. But that's great. So, yeah, it's a different character. It's a character who had a very small part in Deeper Than Hell, who's the star of this entire novel. And it's going to come out right around the 1-year anniversary of Deeper Than Hell. So, yeah, title reveal, Septum. What does it mean? I don't know.
All right. So it's coming out at the 1-year mark, so we could expect that around,
June.
3-4 months from now?
Yeah, mid-June.
Yeah. So,
and there's something exciting that I have to mention before I let me go is that I actually wrote a novelization for Forbidden Zone, which isn't a horror movie. It's a cult film from 1980, written and directed by Richard Elfman, who's Danny Elfman's older brother.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So have you seen it? It's really kind of obscure.
It's been a while since I saw it, but I remember we talked about Danny Elfman's brother last time.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like something you'd see on stage, and that's kind of the point, because the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo used to have a much more theatrical element. So it's actors, and the sets are all made out of cardboard, and you've got adults playing kids. It's really funny. So there are adult themes, but it's not a horror movie at all. Now, the way I wrote it, it's a horror story because, I mean, it really is a story about, kids being taken to another dimension and terrorized and stuff like that. So I really leaned into the horror. So it becomes something new. It was my first stab at a novelization, and I'm really excited for that to come out. And you guys can look for that around Halloween time.
All right. So how do you approach a novelization versus a novel or a story that you're fleshing out yourself?
Sure. It was really easy for me compared to something on my own. It's like, you start with the screenplay if you have it. If not, I didn't have access to the screenplay because the movie's so old. I just watched the movie with the subtitles on and recreated it beat by beat, just kind of like making really brief notes. And then I just filled it out. It was like creating a mock screenplay with just little notes here and there, and then just filling in the blanks as I had a roadmap the entire way. It kind of just wrote itself. I didn't have to think, what comes next? What should I put in next? It's all there.
Okay. All right, Joshua, thank you so much. And again, look for, if you haven't already, check out Deeper Than Hell, and that should whet your appetite for the sequel, or what did you call it? The
paraquel.
The paraquel.
Yeah, it's like parallel and sequel.
Parallel sequel. That makes sense. All right. So that's going to be coming at not too distant future.
Not too distant future, just about to switch gears from talking about this guy to talking about Septum full time. So it's a good time. This is like a transition.
Excellent.
Hey, I got to thank you too. You're right, though. Lots happened in the 8 months since we last spoke, but I've always thought fondly of you. You read Deeper Than Hell. You asked me such thoughtful questions.
Oh, thank you.
And then to have me back here for the dreadful years. And to just have you share my excitement about Deeper Than Hell Part 2 coming out. I've really had a positive experience with you, and I'm thankful that you've invited me on twice now to share your platform.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But your book was one of the actually the more entertaining ones, and I think it was because you and I are both real big 80s music fans and buffs and stuff like that. So just all these little nuggets of jokes and little just really these little nuggets. It's like, okay, if anybody who's like 20 some years old now that didn't live during those years when music was good, those lines or those chapters would just go right over their heads. It was like, I got what he's saying. I got what he's saying.
Yeah,
I know I got the reference.
Tons of Easter eggs and references. Someone told me I should make an annotated version of Deeper Than Hell. It's got so many nods.
Well, Joshua, thank you so much for spending time with us again. And
my pleasure, sir.
So check out the YouTube channel too. I'm glad you still have your dreads. You haven't cut those off yet. All right.
Not anytime soon.
I wish I had them. That's a problem I'd like to have.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you again for sharing your platform with me and opening up a new audience to me who might not have heard of me before.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night.